Happy Passover, happy past Easter.
Yeah.
So here's a definition of a conundrum.
Aziz and Pesach.
Aziz and Pesach, a freiliche Pesach, right? Easter candy goes on sale yesterday for 50% or more off. We can't buy it till Friday. It's not kosher for Passover. That's a conundrum right there. There you go. Oh, I'm here to explain, tell you the story of Passover. It is a very complicated way to observe this holiday. We have rules that are already pretty crazy the rest of the year, but it gets ratcheted up a whole notch for Passover. And we might begin to explain that by letting you know, and this is totally true, spring cleaning invented by the Jews. Why do I say that? Well, first of all, you can look on Wikipedia and they actually do give credit to it, because this time of year, the Jewish households would completely clean out the pantry, the kitchen, the appliances. Even back in the day, they didn't have appliances, but the idea is we are supposed to remove all traces of anything leavened for the whole week. That's bread, cookies, cakes, more bread, bagels, donuts. You get the idea. What are we thankful for? That's the nature of the holiday. Why do we do all the crazy things I'm going to share with you today? Why do we eat this box of what could have been bread, but it isn't? It all has to do with being thankful for our freedom. And that's one of the reasons it probably resonates with Americans to the point that it does, because we do love our freedom in this country. We celebrate it every year on July 4th. But for Jews, freedom from Egypt goes all the way back 3,300 years and change to when our people were slaves to Pharaoh, and God arranged for miracles. Why do we get together for this really cool meal, which I'll explain in a bit? And that comes from the commandment to remember what happened and pass it on to the next generation, to tell the story. All right, well, imagine each of us were given that information to say, you tell a story, you tell the story, you tell the story, etc. How many versions of the story do you think we'd get? Each of us would think different parts were more important than other parts. Parts that resonate with us more than they would with someone else might get more attention. So we have a prescribed order in how we tell the story. Last week on Wednesday night and Thursday night, we had our two Seders. In the Holy Land, they only had one, would have been Wednesday night. The Bible says 7 days. You're going to celebrate, you're going to eat matzot, or plural of matzah. You're going to eat unleavened bread only, don't have any leavening in your communities. The first day is holy and the last day is holy. But since we live outside the land of Israel, we kind of pay what I call the diaspora penalty. Because we're not living in the Holy Land, we get an extra day on the front end and an extra day on the back end. So here in America, we do two Seders. An obligation to tell the story and have two ritual foods. Bitter herbs to remind us of bitter slavery, and the unleavened bread. The main food of the holiday is matzah. It's a match. But this is what happens to bread if you don't let it rise, theoretically. Flour plus water, that's it. No other ingredients, not even salt. Nothing. From the moment the flour touches the water, you have a deadline to get that rolled into dough, kneaded, formed, put into the oven, and taken back out. The whole process must finish in 18 minutes or less. This is the number one thing we need to have at our Seder, and it's because according to the Torah, our ancestors left in such a hurry, they didn't have time to let the bread finish doing its thing. Okay, what do we know about the Exodus? Really? We think that it happened so quickly they didn't have 18 minutes? They had very little time. When it was time to go, it was time to go. Back in the day, you made your bread every day. You cooked for that day. You didn't have a refrigerator, you didn't have a freezer, you didn't have ways to store food for a long time, so you were living day to day. So it makes sense if this happened in the morning that the people got up, probably the ladies of the house began to make the daily bread, and it's time to go right now. So they grabbed it out of the oven and took off, and Torah tells us outright this is what they ate. Only it's not. It's not quite what they ate. What happens to this, if you roll it out a bit thicker, is you get something like a pita bread or a lavash bread. It's soft. Matzah was meant to be soft. So why isn't it? It has a shelf span of 1 day tops. If you baked matzah in the morning and you went to have it the next morning, it'd be hard as a rock. No preservatives. It's going to just go stale immediately. So the commercial companies had to make it like this so that it could sit on the shelves and last for the whole holiday. That's the main symbol of Passover. This plate contains spaces for the others. This is the actual Seder plate used at Temple Beth Shalom. The one I have at home is made by Lennox. There's lots of varieties of them. They can look like anything, but they're going to have one thing in common, which is space to hold the different symbols of the holiday. So the main one is matzah, which doesn't go on here. All right, we're already at strike one. So what does go on here? The shank bone goes here, and we don't even call attention to it in the book. The whole Haggadah never mentions it once. It does sort of mention it, that our ancestors did sacrifices and we remember that and that's it, but we don't eat it. We don't take part in any rituals with it. The next one is charoset, which is hard to explain. It's a mixture of apples, walnuts, and wine with a little cinnamon thrown in. It's the best part of the whole night, if you ask me. And it's supposed to represent the mortar that the Israelites used when they were slaves to build buildings for Pharaoh. They had to make their own bricks, and then they had to put them together into stuff. A lot of people say that they built the pyramids, but the timing doesn't add up. More likely they built warehouses, storehouses for Pharaoh, it says in the Torah. So they had cheap, free slave labor, but at the great expense of the people who were doing it. So we remind ourselves of that slavery with something a little sweet, believe it or not, which counteracts the next one, which is the bitter herb, maror. Horseradish has become the main one we use, even though technically it's not bitter. The end of a celery or the bottom of a romaine lettuce, that kind of bitter taste is what really we were after. But for some reason, Eastern Europeans had access to horseradish. That's what we got. Horseradish is, spicy. So we temper it with the charoset, which is sweet. Because even though there was bitterness, there was always a little bit of hope. Isn't that beautiful? Then we have, not on the plate, but in the middle, you put some salt water representing the tears of the slaves. And into that, we dip some greens. That's just representative of springtime. This is the one holiday in all of Judaism that tells us when we have to do it based on the seasons. The rest of them tell us which month, which day, but Passover is the only one where it's called out as a spring festival. You must celebrate it in the spring because that's when it happened. Our people were liberated that time of year. So Passover is in the spring. When will it be next year? What are you asking me for? The calendar's crazy. No, it's a leap year next year, so it will be later. I believe it's April 20th through 28th, thereabouts.
Come at the end of April.
The end of April. It can be as early as the end of March or as late as the end of April, so within a 30-day window. But it's always going to be springtime, so we have a little bit of greens. And we have a roasted egg that we don't do anything with. It's not mentioned at all in the Haggadah. It's not eaten. It's just there to represent, again, the sacrifice. So it used to be how you celebrated this holidays. You brought the lamb for Passover as well as an additional offering. Sometimes it was a grain offering or another animal. So kind of a throwback. You put these things on the plate. The book will direct you next what to do. We have some cups here. It's traditional to have 4 cups of wine at the Seder. Whew, that's a lot of wine. And it's in a relatively short time span. But that's okay. Kosher wine, you need to drink quite a bit of it to get any kind of intoxication going. We also have 2 extra cups. The 5th cup here is for Elijah the prophet. We like to leave a cup for him and invite him to every one of our Seders because we hope he shows up. If Elijah shows up, it's good news. Elijah is said to be the herald of the Messiah, Mashiach. And if Elijah shows up at your Seder, it's going to be world-shaking news. That means the redemption is coming. The world is going to be repaired and everyone's going to live in peace. Wouldn't that be great? So we're optimistic. We leave a cup for him in case he shows up. We wouldn't want to have nothing to offer the prophet Elijah if he came to our door. A modern take is to have a cup for Miriam also. Not in case she shows up, but in remembrance of the importance of women in the story of our people, which for many years didn't get told quite as often. But Miriam's cup is not filled with wine, it gets water. How come she doesn't get wine? Miriam's associated with water every step of her journey. She's 5 years old, baby Moses is born, he's thrown into the river. Who puts him there? Miriam. Who watches over him while he floats down in the basket? Miriam. Who's there when he's pulled out of the water? Miriam. So the next big thing is you don't mix dairy with meat. Dairy represents life, mother's milk. It's nurturing, it's nourishing. Meat means something had to die in order to get you that meat. We don't like to mix the two. The Torah says 3 times, don't boil a baby goat in its mother's milk, which is a very oddly specific commandment, but the rabbis basically expanded that to just don't mix the two ever. So a lot of homes will have 2 sets of dishes, a dairy set and a meat set. Passover takes it to the next level. All of those rules are still in effect, and you can't have bread or anything leavened or deriving from those products. So that's a tough one. The Torah tells us there are 5 things that can be chametz, which is the opposite of matzah. Matzah is unleavened bread. Interestingly enough, the same 5 ingredients can be made into bread or this stuff. What changes is how we prepare it. They are wheat, oats, barley, spelt, and rye. Not on the forbidden list, which is good. So potato, no problem. A lot of things made from potato flour this week. Tapioca flour, coconut, which we will have some delicious macaroons in a few minutes. So we don't do anything with wheat, oats, barley, spelt, or rye this week unless it's been made into matzah or certified for Passover.
Here you go, Boris. Take the whole plate.
The whole thing?
Yeah.
Okay.